Okay, good afternoon, everybody. It is so wonderful to be back here with another installment of Wednesdays with Wolbes. And it's a great privilege for me to sit alongside my lovely wife and teach a Torah class together. It's a dream come true, so I'm really grateful for this incredible opportunity. Wanted to begin this way, the third step, the third tool that our sages give us in the Mishnah, in the 6th chapter, in the 6th Mishnah, in Ethics of Our Fathers, is about speech. So what is speech? Please.
Me? Okay. So last time we were talking about listening. That was number 2, was listening. I think a very important part of listening that I think we spoke about a little is that really listening. So listening to someone and internalizing what they say. And a very well-known follow-up when you listen to someone is to repeat it back to them, to say, okay, and not in your own words, but to accept what they were saying and then say back, okay, so am I understanding this correctly? Is this what you're trying to say? And you respond back, you play back what they were saying. So that's, I guess, the connection between when you listen. So you start, part of listening is you would start back by you speaking, because important part of that would be like concretizing. Is that the word?
Yeah.
What they are saying and speaking, because when you use the words, when you speak it out, it's much more effective.
Right. So our sages tell us that when we are able to verbalize things in our own words, that's when we actually get a kinyan. That's when we actually acquire the information. So if it's just, if we're in a class and the teacher teaches something, if we're not able to verbalize it in our own words, then it doesn't really become ours. We don't own it yet. It's interesting, in public speaking, they say that if you can't say it in 30 seconds, you can't say it in 30 minutes. And it's one of those, well-known adages about public speaking. You have to have your message down to exactly what it is that you're trying to convey, and speak it out in a form of clarity. Once you're able to say it in those 30 seconds, you can continue to elaborate on it for 30 minutes or 30 hours, right? We see the Torah is endless and we have so much wisdom. And talking things out is such a critically important part of our learning. So it's part of our process of not only, we said stage number 1 is always be learning. Stage number 2 is listen. Stage number 3 is speak it out, review it, discuss it, have another opinion that you have someone you can bounce things off and talk it out, because when you talk it out, you gain another layer of clarity that potentially was missed just because, we like to get, yeah, I got it, and let's move on, right? To really, like you said, concretize the idea and put it into real living wisdom in our lives, right? So the power of speech. You want to go? Please go ahead. I just want you to know that okay, I'm very impressed with Zahara has a full page of notes here. A full page of notes here. Really, really, I'm very impressed. I'm very proud. So let's go. Come.
This is first for me. And we talking about speaking, we didn't get a chance to have time to like discuss what we were saying together. So I don't know what you're saying, and you don't know what I'm saying. So
I'm sure it'll be beautiful.
Okay. On that awkward note, okay, so I was just thinking that the word for we have the oral law and the written law. So the written law is the 5 books of Moses, primarily, and then there's the oral law. So that's what we call it, the oral, right? So what is that? That's all the Mishnah and the Talmud, all the follow-up, right? So a lot of people, there's a lot to say about that, but just in the context of what we're discussing here, is that the oral law is what was, it wasn't not given over. Oh, here's I the chart, right? It wasn't. It's just as Torah as the written law, and there's actually so much more oral law versus the written law. So the written law is, I think there's at least 50, 100 times more. I might be making that up. Oral law versus, because really it's endless. Anything that's all the rabbis' teachings and all that over the generations, it's all considered oral law. But most of it was written down eventually over the years because, because, okay, let's backtrack the drop. Sorry. So the oral law was transmitted from rabbi to student, rabbi to student, rabbi to student. Moshe gave it over to the elders, and the elders to the this, and the prophets, and the prophets, and then it was further transmitted. But eventually, it wasn't enough to have it transmitted, so it was written down because we were losing that transmission. There wasn't enough strong students to become to pass it on, and also the Jews were spreading out across the world, so it had to just be written down. But the value of oral law was that it was taught over. It's like a lecture. It's a live lecture. You're hearing your rabbi tell it to you. Like for him, it's firsthand. It's not something he read. He took it. He internalized it, and he's passing it on. This wasn't made up. It was really like a direct link. But however, the value of speaking it over is much more than just reading the Torah. It became more like a real.
So we're actually going to be talking at way number 14 and 15. We're going to be talking about the written Torah, the oral Torah, understanding the full measure of the great wisdom that was transmitted. The Talmud says, I think we mentioned this previously, in Tractate Brachot 5a, it brings the exact detail of proof that the oral Torah was transmitted to Moses at Mount Sinai orally and transmitted from generation to generation all the way till it was written down by Rabbeinu HaKadosh, Rabbi Judah the Prince, who was the leader of the Jewish people. He wrote it in the Mishnah and then further elaborated in the Talmud. But each, we think of the contrast between the way Jews study Torah and the way non-Torah study goes. So if you go walk into a library is silent. You use your library voice, you whisper, everyone has to be quiet. But if anybody's been to a Torah study hall, right? If you come to Partners in Torah, everyone's welcome to join us Partners in Torah Wednesday nights. It is loud. It is a totally different experience because in Judaism, we don't believe in just like, let's just absorb the information as is. We want to argue it because we're fighting for truth. We want to know, is the way I see it the proper way? Is the way that I understand things indeed the way the Almighty wants us to understand it? And I have a study partner that I learn with, and we discuss it, and we argue, we have different perspectives, and that's a very healthy thing. In Talmud, you don't see a single page in Talmud that doesn't have several differing opinions arguing. And the reason is because the goal in Judaism is to connect with truth. The Almighty is Hashem Elokechem Emet. Hashem is truth, right? God's name is truth. And what we want to do is to connect with that truth. The only way to get that truth, to attain that truth on a real level, is for us to talk it out with someone, have a discussion, argue it out. And that's why the study halls of yeshiva is so loud and vibrant, because there's that argument, that discussion, that perspectives that we're all sharing with our fellow and arguing out our perspective so that we come to that truth and clarity.
A lot of men also on their own, or women on their own when they're learning, they also, even if they're in a room by themselves, you'll hear them talking it out, learning out loud. Like my son was learning before, and he was just reading, and he was reading it out loud because that's what they're trained to do, because it's a form of learning that they really learn much better when they say it out loud. When you hear yourself talking, you internalize it. And I think that's also with prayers. We say prayers out loud, supposed to say it. When you make a blessing, there's something you're supposed to say it out loud. Also, someone could answer amen to your blessing when you say it out loud. But when you say it out loud, you focus more on what you're saying versus just like, okay. And even in the silent prayer that we say every day, the Amidah, we're supposed to say it, even though we say that quietly, but you're still supposed to actually move your lips. You mouth out the words. So even if you're not saying it out loud, but it's kind of like you're still speaking and you're saying it out loud and you're internalizing what you're saying.
Actually, the halacha says very interestingly that when we say the silent Amidah, we're supposed to say it loud enough that our own ears can hear it, because that itself helps, so not for others to hear, but our silent prayers should also be at least audible enough for our own ears to hear it, so that helps in concentration. That helps us internalize the words and connect to it and bring it out to a much deeper way of expression.
So that these, I was saying the video, there's like a father, this cute video, this father with his daughter, they're standing in front of the mirror, and the father says to the daughter, "I am beautiful," and this little cute girl goes, "I am beautiful," and he says, "I'm powerful." I don't remember exactly what she said, but "I'm powerful. I can do whatever I want. I am special. I am unique." And this little girl is repeating it all in the mirror, like proudly, strongly, with this confidence. And it was so cute, like a father-daughter moment. But it's just another example of saying it. There's a big concept of, saying words and, to yourself and making sure that you uh, hear yourself saying it, positive self-talk, all that, right? Talking things into existence, all those kind of ideas that this father is teaching his daughter to look in the mirror and say it. And a lot of people aren't comfortable with that because they feel awkward and they feel funny talking to themselves. But it is a well-known, powerful tool to do, and it's very effective.
It's an amazing thing. We've discussed this many times, that the love we have for our children, every parent has for their child, needs to be expressed. It's not enough for us to believe that our children just know that they're loved. They have to hear it, and they have to hear it not only once a day. They have to hear it 100 times a day, as many times as we can possibly, verbalize that love and express that love. It needs to be spoken out. It's not enough to just have the feelings. Imagine a relationship of a husband and wife, which hopefully is loving and caring and endearing. If the love is not expressed in words, they say a joke. I repeated this numerous times, of a couple who goes for therapy, and the wife tells the therapist, my husband doesn't love me. He just doesn't love me. So the therapist turns to the husband and says, "Is it true that you don't love your wife?" She says, "You don't say you love her. You don't say." He says, "I don't understand." He says, "I told her when we got married, I love you. And if anything changes, I'll let you know." Right? So we know that doesn't work. It needs to constantly be reverbalized every day and that builds our children as well. That builds the relationships we have. Just to assume everything is on cruise control and we'll get there and everything will be fine isn't enough. We need to empower the people around us, particularly our children, by giving them that confidence, and for them to hear their parents constantly telling them how great they are will build up that confidence. When like the father with the daughter, I can guarantee you that daughter feels powerful and she feels loved and she feels that she's the most special girl in the world, because she's heard it from her father. She has reverbalized it to herself. And I think particularly in our generation where we have these terrible devices as a distraction, and parents, you see parents at the park, right? And the parents are like this the whole time. It's a terrible thing because we're not talking to our children. We're not using that power, that unbelievable power that was given to us of speech, to be able to communicate with our children in an effective way and in a loving way. So I think it's also a very, very important part of speech. Our sages tell us that the power of speech, it says in Proverbs, life and death are in the hands of the tongue. Right? Life and death is in the hands of the tongue. Right? The words that we use are so powerful that we can make someone's life or destroy someone's life by the words that we use. if we just for a second, I don't want to get into it yet, talk about the uh, the current events, all of these riots and all of these. I mean, if people were just careful by the words that they use, be careful the communication, right? We would. I don't think we would get to this point where people are so frustrated and so hurt. And I'm not going to justify it at all, but the idea is that we could eliminate and alleviate so much pain in the world if we were just more careful with our words. If we were just able to express ourselves in a nicer way, right? Use kinder words.
It's not just to other people, it's to ourselves. I think I just said that also, but it is very important. I think a lot of us say things, we could have negative thoughts, and sometimes you say it out loud. Um, my One of my older kids was like, oh, like they spilled something, and like, oh, I'm such an idiot. And Hadassah, our 2-year-old, goes, we no talk like that, and it was very cute. But it's true. Like, it's so important. We do that. Kids do that. And we shouldn't let our kids do that. We shouldn't do it to ourselves, because the more we say that, like, oh, I cannot believe I just did that. I'm so stupid. Or um, I can't. I can't do it. And the more you say these kind of things out loud, it becomes your reality. Your words become your reality. And when we say all these negative things about ourselves, um, for sure we shouldn't think it, but the more you say it out loud. Like, you hear people talking on the phone to a friend or to a spouse or to whoever it is, and saying such negative things about themselves, and you think that it doesn't matter. Of course it matters. When you say and when you say positive, it adds another layer of
Positive.
like positivity. And when you say out negative, it adds another. It's a deeper, like, negative, and it's so important not to do that to ourselves or for other people.
But it's interesting that we one of the statements in the word in Proverbs again by King Solomon is that it is life to those who speak them out. Chaim hem lemotz ehem. And our sage states, when you verbalize something, you bring it to life. It's the same with the love that's expressed between the spouses, between parents and children, but also the things we learn when we're able to speak them out, it comes to life. If a person, God forbid, says negative words about about a group of people, says negative words about themselves, it becomes negative as well. I just want to share with you an amazing story about the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim was once on a train, and the Chafetz Chaim was a very humble man, a simple man. And a few stops later, someone comes onto the train. He sees, oh, there's another Jewish man here. He didn't know it was the Chafetz Chaim, and he sees an older Jewish man. So he sits down next to him. Oh, it's nice, you're on a train. At least you're sitting next to another Jew. So the Chafetz Chaim was getting a little hot on the train, so he opened up the window, and the individual says, "What's wrong with you?" He slams the window shut. Okay, the person felt bad that the Chafetz Chaim didn't do anything. Obviously, the Chafetz Chaim was a very humble, simple man, right? And the Chafetz Chaim, this individual felt bad that he, yelled at this elderly man. So he says to him, "Who are you?" He says, I'm Yisrael Meir." Right? So he says, "Where are you from?" He says, "I'm from Radin." He says, "From Radin?" "Oh, Radin, the Chafetz Chaim lives there." He didn't know he's talking to the Chafetz Chaim. So he says, "The Chafetz Chaim? Who's the Chafetz Chaim?" So the individual stood up and gave the Chafetz Chaim a spank, right, a slap across his face. Okay, the Chafetz Chaim didn't respond, and the person was like disgusted with the Chafetz Chaim, and he walks away. Okay, it gets to the stop that the Chafetz Chaim was going to get off, and it was the same stop that this individual needed to get off. So they get off, but they get off at different doors. And this individual sees that there are hundreds of people waiting by the platform, to greet someone. And he says, "What's going on?" They say, "What do you mean? The Chafetz Chaim is arriving on this train." And he realizes that the person that he spoke of, that he hit, and that he was treating so not nicely, was actually the Chafetz Chaim. So he didn't know what to do. The person was distraught. The next day, the person mustered up the courage, and he found out where the Chafetz Chaim was staying. He wanted to meet the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim was excited to meet this individual. So he comes and he greets him at the door. He says, please come inside. The person's like, couldn't sleep the whole night. He's crying. How can I have done that to the Chavetz Chaim, the leading Torah scholar of the generation? I slapped him, right? I yelled at him. I was so disrespectful to him. So the Chavetz Chaim pulls out prepares a table for him, to make a l'chaim with him, and the person's like, I don't understand. He says, no. The Chavetz Chaim says, you don't understand. He says, you taught me one of the greatest lessons. He says, you taught me that Lashon Hara shouldn't be even spoken about oneself. And he added this in the book. Chavetz Chaim added this part in the book, that even about yourself, you shouldn't speak negatively. It's such an important lesson. The Chavetz Chaim felt that, wow, I owe this person respect because he taught me a lesson from the Torah. Always speak positively about others and about yourself. Don't speak negatively about others. Don't speak negatively about yourself. Oh, I'm so terrible. Oh, I'm so this. Oh, person shouldn't say that. A person should find positive things to say about themselves. That positivity leads to more positivity. Please.
So just on that note, I think when we say something out loud, when we say positive, we feel a stronger commitment. Whether it's again, most of this can go either way, positive or negative. So when you say something positive, you're more likely. Let's say if you say something out loud, almost like a promise. You say it out loud. It's much more likely that you'll actually follow through than if you just think it. When you use your words, it makes it a stronger reality. We use more when you think something, you're using just your brain. When you talk, you're using your lungs or your diaphragm, right, to get air into your mouth, and you're using your tongue and your mouth and your lips and your everything to speak. So it's a lot stronger than just thinking in your head, and it just strengthens what you were thinking. And we have to make sure that we say positive things to ourselves, and we say, today I'm gonna say it out loud. Say, today I'm gonna take care of this and this and this, and not just think it. And when you say something out, it's probably more likely that you will actually do it. I know this is a thing that a lot of people say, talk out your plans the night before. Tomorrow I'm going to, or today I'm going to. I'm not so good with that, but maybe because, see, this is a good example, because I'm saying it now and I'm telling it over, so now I'll actually maybe do it.
So yes, it's the Talmud says that a person should arrange the words. If you look at the way number 3 in Hebrew, it's arichat sfatayim, which means to arrange it in your lips. It's not enough to just spit it back out, the words, but to actually arrange it, meaning to, it's not enough to speak it out once or twice. It needs to be arranged and organized in one's lips as though, the Talmud says, it's placed in your pocket, meaning I own it. It's mine now, right? So you learn a new concept. I'll give you an example. We all have technological challenges, I'm sure. Okay, I'm a big techie. I love technology, and there are things that sometimes I need to learn once, twice, 3 times, 4 times. I need to, till I'm able to get it and understand it. And now it's mine. I create my system of how I get it done, right? And everybody has their system, but it's important for every person to have it arranged by them in their own way of how things get done. And it's perfectly healthy for a person to have that clarity. That's the goal of this whole third tool, is clarity. That's what we're trying to attain. Okay? I think it's a very, very important point to make sure we have clarity in the things that we learn from way number 1, the things that we listen to from way number 2, and now we're trying to concretize those ideas and make it ours.
Most people don't really think before they speak. I think a lot of people, if we thought before we spoke, then we'd say a lot nicer things, a lot better things. When you're being, let's say if you're being recorded, or let's say another form of speech really is writing. So someone who has trouble talking to themselves and saying nice things to themselves, you could also try writing it. Write nice things to yourself. Make a diary. Make a note or like a sticky note and put it on your mirror that says you're awesome, you're great, you can do this, you got this. And instead, if it's harder for you to say it to yourself, then write it down. But that is writing is pretty much a form of speech. That's right. So let's say on social media, when people spend like all these like influencers, but even people, regular people, when they're writing a post on Facebook, they like, what should I write? How should I write it? And they really think and they take time to write the right politicians or anyone who's giving a speech, right? They think like, how do I say what I'm trying to say in the most effective way? Or, you know, but a lot of times we're given this power of speech. That's the difference between men and animals, right? That animals walk and sleep and eat and, right? We talk, they communicate, but we have power of speech. And it's something that we take very for granted, but we have to use our speech for positive things, and we have to think before we speak. And the same way that you know, would, if you knew, I had a little bit of an embarrassing situation. I didn't realize that I was on. No, I'm saying this. I was on a Zoom call. There's a lot of Zoom calls going on in this house, like daily. All the kids have, thank God it's over tomorrow. Tomorrow's the last day of school. But everyone has Zoom classes with school and their teachers and this and that. And then there's the family Zooms and this Zoom and that Zoom. And it's just like it's a little overwhelming. So I clicked onto Zoom and I thought I muted, but I didn't. And so I was totally cool and calm the whole Corona time, and this moment was not my not my greatest moment. And I actually felt I hurt my back, and I was yelling to Arya to come help me, and I was telling the kids to get off the computer, and I was just um, having a moment, not my proudest moment. And of course, it, without my knowledge, was being recorded on this Zoom call. I wasn't on video, but it was very much on audio, and it was also recorded and sent out. So it was very embarrassing. Now I'm thinking about it, I'm still sweating. But I thought to myself, so because it was recorded, because other people heard it, then I was like embarrassed by what I said. And what if nobody heard it? What if that's just how I was talking to my kids without anyone listening? I'm having this little breakdown. It's important for me to talk nicely. I do. I really try. But at that moment, what I said to my kids is just as negative, just because other people didn't hear it. It's important not to just be careful. Think about what you say. Think words really are powerful. You have to think. Um, just take a minute, take a second, take a few seconds before you say something, whether it's to a friend, to a coworker, to someone in the store. Just be patient, just take a moment, because once words go out, they're out, and you can't put them back in. It's very hard, even if you could apologize, it's not what I meant, or whatever. Just
I have the privilege. I have the privilege many times to meet with young couples, um, most of whom are really phenomenal couples, but many times facing different challenges. And unscientifically, I'm not a therapist. I'm just a rabbi, and 9 out of 10, I will guide them. Go speak to someone who's a professional who can really help you. I'm here as a friend. I'll be happy to help. So I, again, unscientifically, I can say that 9.9 out of 10 challenges that couple face are because of words that were used. 9.9 out of 10. It's because, well, you said this, you said that. Well, I only said it because you said it. And it's so terrible. And they love each other to death, but the words are so hurtful and so painful. If people just kept their mouth quiet, right, and just didn't say the stupidity that they said, their relationships could flourish and their relationships could go so well. But it's that sometimes we have this impulse. I want to say it because I want to stand my ground, and I want to. it really could be a very, very challenging thing. So the more we can be careful by the words we use, the absolute greater excuse me, the relationships will be as a result. We use 5 different components, like Zava started saying before, in order to speak. We use our throat, we use our jaw, we use our tongue, our teeth, and our lips to speak, to make sounds, right? However, sometimes we cannot speak out the words, so we can say them silently. Say them silently, like Hannah, right? One of our great matriarchs, right? The mother of the great prophet Samuel, right? We learned from her how to speak silently, but meaningfully, right? To think things through. It really is an unbelievable gift that we have, that we're able to communicate, that when I say hello, everyone understands what that word means. I mean, if you think of the power of speech, that all of these different languages that we have in the world have different sounds that are made that are understood to mean a certain expression or to mean a certain feeling or emotion by using words, right? It's such an unbelievable, awesome power to be able to express a feeling or an idea just through sounds that we make. And the more, my father used to tell us, I can't means I don't want to, right? When you say I can't, it means you don't want to. It doesn't mean you can't.
Says it a lot.
Right? As children, we grew up, there was no such thing as I can't. There's only something called I don't want to. And I think it's an unbelievable principle for parenting, to teach that to our children. I certainly benefited from that perspective my whole life, because anything that I said, oh, I can't do that, I would remember what my father would always tell us, and still does, by the way, and say, you know what? Maybe I'm my own limitation. Maybe I'm my own, me saying I can't is only because I don't believe in myself enough. If I believed in myself, then I could. So, like Sahab was just saying, when we use our positive speech, when we use those words to reaffirm our abilities, then we'll find that strength to do it. By the way, it's also an idea given in the Talmud, the way in which a person wants to go, he's escorted. It's an unbelievable concept. The way in which a person wants to go. If you want to go someplace, you want to become the president, you want to become an Olympic champion, there's nothing that a person sets their heart and mind to. Obviously, it's got to be within ability, right? That they can't accomplish. It's unbelievable. We have untold capabilities, right? If we only believed in ourselves a little bit more. And we built ourselves and gave ourselves a pep talk. I can do this. I can do this. I know I can do it. And we can accomplish anything. There's a very interesting thing in the world of fundraising. There's a great, great quote I heard, is that if you don't ask, the answer will always be no.
That's what you must
Right? If you don't ask, the answer will always be no. Right? So you think about it. You can ask someone. Think of any of the wonderful synagogues that we have in our community. You have a name on top of the synagogue, donated by so and so in honor of or in memory of. And, you know what it took to get that person to do it, to consider it? Just to ask. That's it. All it took was a question. Can you consider this? How many times do we limit ourselves by not having, let's say, inviting someone to our home or inviting a friend to a party, going out for lunch with someone, and we're like, nah, I don't know. And we already give the answers as if we're their attorney. The answer is going to always be no if you don't ask. But if you do ask, there's a 50% chance at least that there'll be a yes. How many opportunities do we? I'll tell you an amazing. I got a phone call yesterday from our adopted son Isaac, who lives in Florida. He was here for the holiday, and he told me on the way back he had a lot of time. So he picked up a phone and he called up this big company. and he wanted to engage them in his business, right? And he said, it took a big chutzpah for him to call up this huge company and start. And guess what? They said yes. He said, he says, I said, if I don't ask, it's for sure going to be no. But if I do ask, maybe I'll get a yes. And he got a yes, right? It's such an important thing to believe in ourselves. If we say, oh, I can't do it. Oh, there are bigger companies that can do it. Guess what? There's a Target and there's a Walmart. I guarantee you when Walmart started before Target, but I guarantee you when they had those first meetings of Target, sitting around, what we should do? We should be the competition to Walmart, just a different style and different this, right? And everyone's like, why? There's already a Walmart. Why do we need another one, right? And look at them, right? And you think about Macy's and Nordstrom and all of these big companies, everyone could have said, what do they need me? They already have 10 places for people to go shopping. Why do they need another one? And if that's the way we think, we'll never get anything accomplished. But we say, you know what? We're going to try to do something unique. We're going to try to do something special. We're going to do it in a way that's going to be unique and special. And we believe in our product. We believe in what we're doing, and we'll accomplish. So the answer is yes. We can do it, right? We could do it, and we can accomplish great things.
You have more chutzpah than me in that department, but I think that we do have to be more confident, ask questions. I think you have to ask the right way and make sure And if you're not sure, you can think about. Also, that's another part of speech and talking it out is that when you're having these discussions and thinking things through, instead of just thinking and driving yourself crazy in your own head, yes, no, trying to make decisions, it's good to talk it out. So if you could talk it out with someone else, that's ideal. If you have someone you can talk to, if you have a family member, a spouse, a friend, so talk to them. And it's also, there's a great benefit, even if you're having a conversation with yourself, so talk it out, say it out loud. I know it sounds crazy, but you can have the conversation with yourself, and once you say it out loud, you kind of hear it better. So you could talk it out and have this conversation. Speak to therapists. People pay a lot of money. They're ready to go to a therapist, and most of the time that they're in therapy, they're just I believe hearing themselves talk, because that's what they need. They just need to hear themselves talk. So you could talk to yourself for free in your own bathroom, in your own mirror, and yeah.
No, it's not to discourage anyone who needs to
sure.
talk it out. It's very important.
No, but I think also people it's a weird thing to talk, like even our prayers, we're talking out loud, right? So it's something people aren't used to. For someone who didn't grow up with that, it's why are you talking out loud? So now you have a mask, you can cover your mouth, so you can be talking out loud, and no one will even know that you're talking to yourself. But also in cars, I do it a lot. When I have time in the car, I'll sometimes, because we know prayer is not just what's written in a siddur, in a prayer book, right? We could talk to God whenever we need help. That's another form, right? Talk to God. That's help me. What am I supposed to do? I'm struggling with this, right? So you're not just talking to yourself. There's always someone listening. When you talk out loud, there's always someone who's listening to you, and that's God. So you're not really talking to yourself. So if you're in the car and you're talking and you're saying, I'm really struggling with this. I don't know how to respond. This is what happened. What should I do? And you're talking, right? So people in the next car could think you're on your Bluetooth having a conversation with your mother somewhere or whatever. No one needs to know that you're talking to yourself. But you can have that conversation, and it's good. It's good to talk it out, because it helps you organize your thoughts, and it helps you see both sides, and it helps you figure things out.
The Talmud in Eruvin 53b says that your entire body should feel your words. And this is referring particularly to prayer. But the idea, the concept behind it is that when you speak it out, you like the reverberations of the words has an impact, right? When we speak things out, it has an impact. So feel it. When we pray, it says, Kol atzmotai tomarna Hashem mikamocha. All of my bones should feel Hashem and should pronounce Hashem, who is like you. right? The idea here is that we want to get out. We don't want our experience, our spiritual experiences, to just be in mind only. We want it to become a full experience where our entire body becomes involved in that conversation, becomes involved in that connection. So feel it out. There's a question here, Linda.
Yes, we have a family member, a close family member who moved to Houston. So he's now a part of all of our family, dinners and get-togethers. And it's a large family. And he tends not to filter his words. And so he comes off sounding kind of bizarre, and nobody responds to him. They just sort of look at him like he's like from another planet. So I decided I was going to constructively speak to him. And I used a particular example, and he said, well, that's what I was thinking at the time. But what he needs to do is to think about how people are going to perceive what he says, and maybe not say, maybe think about what it's going to come out sounding like, and say something else, something that more people can relate to. And so it was really, he did not take it well, and it was kind of ineffective. But I don't, it just was kind of embarrassing. And, my husband and I were both embarrassed. And, we don't know what to say.
Right. Look, so it's not everyone has tact, and not everyone has the ability to accept and or understand the setting when we're dealing with different people. They're living in their own space, in their own world, and sometimes that's not. We all have people who have social challenges around us, right? Whether it's in classes, we've had for many, many years people who've come to classes and make it very, very difficult as an educator or a teacher to manage a classroom, because there you have people who just don't stop talking, or you have people who, I would say filibuster a class, and it doesn't stop, and or people who say things that are just offensive to other people. So we all have that. Then we have to use a lot of love when we deal with those people, a lot of love, and really think it through exactly in what way we can present this idea so that it'll be effective and accepted, as opposed to just getting it off my chest. All I want to do is get it off my chest. I said my piece, and now do what you want with it. Right? That's not necessarily going to be effective. So it's important. It's important to make sure we know who we're talking to, and if we don't know who we're talking to yet, then perhaps we don't have a business criticizing them or giving them that constructive criticism. But again, when we're dealing with specifically with speaking, not everyone has the sense of knowing what to say, particularly at a shiva call, a shiva house, right? I've heard from so many people. My sister lost a child. Actually, it's his yahrzeit just a few days ago, and 2 years ago she lost her baby, and really devastating, really tragic. But one of the things that she shared with me was that the stupidity that people say at the shiva house. Here they're mourning their baby, their 8-month-old baby, and people are asking, well, did you give them immunization shots? Did you get what what's right? This is not the first. It's not the time. Second, it's nobody's business. Right? Was he sleeping on his stomach, on his back? And it's like, it's like here they're mourning their child, and people don't have the sensibility to just, you know, get out of themselves and understand what the other person is experiencing, and not say things that could be hurtful, offensive, painful, for no reason. So it's really an important uh, objective when we are dealing with other people, to always think beyond ourselves. We're going to talk about it a lot in the future of these classes, to get out of our own selfish being and understand what the other person is experiencing. When we talk about kindness, we're talking about this in our Beth Yeshurun class Sunday mornings, what it means to really connect with what the other person needs. What's the other person experiencing? What are their lackings? And help them in that area. So,
I know you said you don't want to talk about it before, but let's say to tie this into current events, and I want to be very careful what we're saying here. I actually wanted to go yesterday to the demonstrations. I just didn't think it was a safe or a good idea. But I felt like I wanted to show our support, and I posted a video on Facebook that I thought was very nice, seeing the religious Jewish community in New York show up to the protests, and a peaceful protest. That's also obviously there's conversations that need to be had, and sometimes speech isn't enough. A peaceful protest and showing to that this is something that really needs to change, needs to happen here. But then you have people who are like acting like a entitled, spoiled 2-year-old and having a temper tantrum and just throwing things down and breaking things. Right? You have a 2-year-old who, instead of talking when they want something, um, taking advantage of the situation, and acting worse than children, and just throwing stuff, breaking stuff, and acting. So it's very important. We were given a power of speech. We were given speech, and we have to use our speech. Not scream and yell, not throw tantrums, but to have a conversation. And it is important to have a conversation. But I don't know. What do you think about like how that ties in with?
I think like this. I think we're living in a world where there obviously is challenges. We all understand that there are challenges where we have kids who grow up with whether it's a home that's not a wholesome environment, whether it's a underprivileged education. There's a lot of challenge that people are facing, and we have to be understanding of it, and we have to understand that not everyone is given the same opportunity. We were watching the video yesterday of someone giving
$100 bill.
$100 bill for whoever runs the fastest to the end of a race, running a regular typical race, and it's multicultural. So you have people, and he says anybody who grew up with two parents at home, take 2 steps forward. Anybody who grew up with a father figure, take 2 steps forward. Anybody, and then
You never
after
had to worry about where your next meal's from. If you never,
all of these things, and what it was really a I want it was a heart-wrenching experience watching it. And then after a few questions like that, he says, okay, now turn around. And you see that there's a group of people, minorities, who don't have those opportunities, who don't have the privilege, not to any of their own wrongdoing. And it really is, it's devastating. And then he says, and now you're going to go out on the world and think that you had, that your life is difficult, and you think that it really is, we have to take a second to understand that people are facing challenges. Now, is it right for them to be taking and breaking and stealing and jumping on all of these possessions that are not theirs? Absolutely not. That doesn't justify theft. It doesn't justify, you look at Fifth Avenue today in Manhattan, it's all boarded up with wood. It's unbelievable. Why? Because all the windows are smashed already. It really is a devastating situation for our culture. It's a devastating situation for the world that we're living in today to have this as the current reality. Notwithstanding that, I think we just have to take a second to stop and to, recognize the gifts that we do have. And that if any of us grew up with a normal home, with normal parents, that we didn't have to worry about where our next meal is coming from, and we didn't have to work 3 jobs to support our parents. It really, we have to be grateful and understand that there are people who are facing tremendous challenges, and that we have to have that care, concern, that love for other people, for humanity. again, it's not not in the slightest way do I want it to come off as being justifying these behaviors. But
Most
that
people are hopefully most of the people who are protesting, they
peaceful,
shouldn't be compared, like we shouldn't lump together people who are protesting peacefully and the people who probably don't really care, honestly, about the real cause and are just, you know, exploiting the situation.
look, I think it's also it's coming on the heels of a long lockdown where people are a little bit they're cabin crazy. They just need to get out a little, and it's coming on in a very bad time. But I think I think we shouldn't be tolerant of this behavior. I think we shouldn't be accepting that this is a new norm. I think we should understand, though, that there are people who are hurting. Right? There are people who are hurting, and just to feel that pain, we're not going to necessarily be able to change it, but at least feel where people are coming from. Um, the more senses you involve, the more of an impression it leaves on you, right? They say that the best way to learn is to listen, to speak, to write. The more senses you involve, the more you will be able to it'll have an impact on you. In Proverbs, another great gem from King Solomon, it says the following. It says, "Ish kefi mehalalo," a person according to their praise. The things that you praise define who you are. When you praise someone's good actions, guess what? It's defining who you are. If you're constantly criticizing, oh, that's terrible and that's terrible, that defines who you are. The words that you use define the essence of who you are. So let's go out there and say the great things about other people, because that really is the definition of who we are. Um, more?
No.
Everyone needs a sounding board, a feedback system. You can do it yourself, like Zahaba mentioned. You can talk in front of the mirror. If that's a little creepy for you to talk to yourself in the mirror, that's fine. You can just go for a walk and talk to yourself, right? You can sit outside your house or in your living room on the couch and just have a conversation, talk things out, or have a friend. In fact, the Mishnah says, acquire a friend. Friends are not just, they don't just come easy. You need to acquire, you need to invest. And whether that be a therapist that you pay, and that's the acquisition, or that be a friend that you invest in the relationship. You can buy them coffee, you can treat them, right? So that you have someone you can talk to. That's part of the investment that we make in our friendships. Because it's really important to have someone to talk to have someone who can be your sounding board, who you can reflect ideas and bounce them off them. Right? The Torah says, we say, lilmod ulelamed, means to learn and to teach. It's not enough to just learn things. We have to have someone that we can teach it to. Share the wisdom that you have with other people. It's such an important idea that we shouldn't keep the information that we learn to ourselves. Because I can tell you this as, I've been teaching now for about 17 years. I've been teaching on almost a daily basis. There are concepts that I learn, I think I understand them, but then when I actually teach them, that's when I gain the clarity. That's when I gain when I'm able to articulate those ideas. That's when, I feel like I've got it now. Right? Now that I've been able to teach it, I've been able to articulate it. Now I'm able to understand it myself. So by learning it, that's one thing. But by teaching it, that's when you really learn it. So if you have someone that you can call up today and review the things that we discussed today, that is an unbelievable asset that we have, that we're able to, share the ideas, talk it over with someone, have the ability to verbalize it so that we can, again, reaffirm the wisdom and the knowledge that we have with others. It's such an, Mikol Malamdai Hiskalti, I've learned from everyone, but our sages tell us, but when I had to teach it to my students, I learned more because we're challenged with our questions. 1 second. You took that as an obvious understanding. 1 second, I'm going to challenge your ideas. I'm going to challenge your thoughts. I'm going to challenge your logic. And it's perfect because that helps us sharpen those ideas. You don't sharpen a knife by itself, right? The way you sharpen a knife is you take another knife and now you use them against each other. What happens is now both knives become sharper, right? It really is an amazing idea. Huh?
No, you're good.
Right? There are phrases. There are phrases that we can reinforce within ourselves to strengthen our mood, to strengthen our conviction, our ideas. I cheated and I saw in Zahava's notes. You want to talk about it?
Okay, why are you so funny? Okay, no. Continue your thought. I'll say that.
We can find there are great quotes. There are great quotes by our sages that we can just take them, put them on a piece of paper, and repeat them daily, right? Talk about Adasa, right?
I just wrote that she says a lot. Thank you. She hears from her brothers and hopefully from us.
How old is she?
She's 2 years old. She says a lot. Thank you, Hashem. Thank you, Hashem. And it's the cutest thing because she's so little, but it's so important for us to say these things out loud. Like not feel like, oh, okay, I know I'm lucky. I know I have things are good. Say it out loud. Like, thank you to people and also to Hashem. And it also helps you internalize, wow, I am lucky. I am grateful. I am. That's when you say your blessings out loud, right? So I was saying before, and someone can answer Amen, right? Which is a double blessing, let's say, right? But when you say a blessing, you're taking a moment to acknowledge what you have, right? There's a famous. It says that if you eat from this world and you don't say a blessing, you're stealing, right? And it's not that who you're stealing from, and you're not stealing from God. He doesn't need to hear you say, "Oh, thank you so much." He doesn't need that from you. You're stealing from yourself. You're stealing from yourself the opportunity to say out loud, "Wow, look at this beautiful fruit." Like take that moment to before you eat it. Take a moment to speak and say thank you. Like look what I have. Look what an amazing world it is. Look how many you go into the supermarket and see tons of beautiful fruits and vegetables. Look what we have. Look, you use the restroom, and afterwards there's a prayer for that. Is that it's like a little silly, but you come out of the restroom. It's not silly because you take that minute and you just say a quick blessing. Thank you, Hashem, for my body, for that there's openings where there's meant to be openings, and there's not closures where there shouldn't be. Because if either way, we'd be in big trouble. So appreciate that your body works and you say all those things out loud and you start to feel grateful and you start to feel like realize what you have and internalize it.
There are many quotes that you can find in Judaism. I started saying earlier that you can say to yourself to give yourself that pep talk. I have one is thank you Hashem. If you see here on my wrist, right? I try to always walk around with it. My children have given me so many of them, but every time I meet someone, they say, "Oh, that's so nice." I'm like, "You want it?" And I give it to them, so then I don't have one. Oh, there you go. You got Aliza has one there as well. All right, so I can try to get for everyone, if you'd like, a thank you Hashem to always remember and to always remind yourselves. But there are a few phrases I want to share that you can use for yourself and say it every day, right? These are not my words, but these are words of our sages. For example, it says, "It's a mitzvah to always be happy." It's a mitzvah to always be happy, right? And you could say that, you know what? I'm going to work on being happy because it's a mitzvah to always be happy. The external affects the internal, right? If a person dresses nicely, they feel better about themselves. They feel good. They feel confident. The external influences the internal. Fake it till you make it is a Jewish concept. The idea is if I put myself up at a certain standard, I'll live up to that standard. And that's what we want to. We want to become better. So we say, you know what? We're going to involve ourselves with a group of people who are good influences so that we become influenced by that. The world stands on Torah, prayer, and kindness. Right? It's a powerful Mishnah. Mishnah says the world stands on Torah, on prayer, and kindness. Everything happens for the good. Gam Zulatova. This is also for the good. Everything God does is for good, right? Do I understand it? I don't understand. But again, it's one of those phrases. You know what? I don't know why, but this is also for the good. Everything Hashem does is for good. God is good. God loves me. God loves us so much. It's unbelievable. And this, again, give yourself that pep talk every day. I've got this. I can do it, right? I'm so gifted is another phrase, right? Each and every one of us are so gifted in so many unique ways, in such a special way. All we need to do is, feel it in our bones and not sell ourselves short. Not sell ourselves short. I remember sitting with my grandmother of blessed memory. She grew up in a home. Her father was the leading rabbi in Slobodka in Lithuania. And I said to her, "What was the environment in your house? What was the environment?" She had many siblings. It was a big house, big family, and she said, "We never fought about little things because my father always told us how great we were. You're big. You're so much bigger than that. Fighting over the small little things, right? You're great. You're unbelievable." And the more we're told that, the more we'll believe that, and the more we push that in ourselves. I don't need to fight about little things. I'm an unbelievable person. I can accomplish greatness, right? And we will be able to accomplish greatness, right? So the words that we use have so much power to influence.
Just want to say with the thank you Hashem, which we say in Hebrew, right? Baruch Hashem, or people say, oh, how are you doing? Baruch Hashem, which means thank God, right? But we have to say, and sometimes say Baruch Hashem, good or bad, So it's because not an answer, but really Baruch Hashem, thank God on the good and the bad. So we have to train ourselves to say thank God when it's good, and even when it's obviously still good, but we don't see it. So we have to also train ourselves. That's another, like when we say, thank you Hashem, even when something that seems bad is going on, we still have to say thank you Hashem, because that trains us to internalize that even though we don't see the good, that it's still good, and we have to realize that Hashem's there. He's still looking out for us, even when things are challenging. Right now, everything's crazy now, right? And we still have to say 100 times a day, thank you Hashem, whatever it is.
Just the idea of, like, Nike has this slogan, just do it, right? Just do it, right? Accept it upon yourself and you'll figure out a way to get it done, right? When someone, is determined to accomplish something, they will accomplish it. To run that marathon, me run a marathon, I can't. I can't means I don't want to, right? We said that earlier. But I can, you'll find a way to do it. When there's a will, there's a way, right? If I'm determined to accomplish something, you want to go meet someone and you want to, your favorite hero, right? If there's a real will, there's a way to do it. And unbelievable things can be accomplished when we reassure ourselves, you know what? I'm going to do this because I'm determined to make it happen. You'll see that you'll have unbelievable success to make it happen, right? So when we are, just as a summary here, when we articulate our inner thoughts, we get our mind, our body, and our soul thinking together to turn ideas into realities, right? That's when we bring them all together to unify just thoughts and make them a reality. Is there anything else you want to share?
Oh yeah, just it's just tiny little thought that even you could have words that aren't words, right? So that's what I was saying. Like writing things can also be a form of speech, kind of, and also body language, your eye movements, everything. If that's why lashon hara, which is the laws of evil speech and slander, and what you're allowed to say and shouldn't say about someone. One of the law, there are laws also about, like, if someone walks in the room and you're like, right, that's evil speech. You didn't say a word, but your little very casual or not so obvious. Sometimes it's very obvious, right? Someone walks in and you like make roll your eyes, or like you know blow them off. However you're doing it, that's still a form of speech, and we have to be careful with that as well.
It's an interesting tool that they say to remember people's names is to use those names. So when you meet someone and you say, "Hi, what's your name?" "My name is Joe." "Hey, Joe," right? You use it immediately. When you verbalize it, you're able to retain that information. It's the same with everything around us. When we are able to repeat those things, even as simple as someone's name, you have more likelihood of remembering it and making it part of you so that you can succeed. Before everyone signs off today, first I want to thank you so much. I want to thank Zahava for this incredible opportunity to learn together and to teach together. But if everyone can please, either in this comment box, in the chat box, or if you can email me at awolbe@torchweb.org or zahava@zwolbe@torchweb.org, if you can please leave your email address so that we're trying to compile a list, because right now we're just sending the reminders out to random groups at Torch, that like this we can put together our Wednesdays group and we can have everyone's email address in one location. So if you could just write in the chat box your email address so that we can contact you for future classes, God willing. We try not to spam people, so we don't want to do that. But we really thank you all for joining us every Wednesday, and looking forward. Bring your friends, please, and looking forward to next week. All right. Thank you, everybody, very, very much. Really appreciate it. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Are there any questions? I'm just going to sign off of YouTube now, but if there are any questions, I'll open up the floor here. So to our friends online on Facebook and YouTube, thank you so much for joining.